The last guest, it was late when Sarah pulled into the parking lot of the old roadside motel, weary from a long day of driving. The flickering neon sign read vacancy, and she sighed with relief, eager for a bed and a hot shower. The lobby was dimly lit, the air thick with an odd mustiness. An elderly woman stood behind the desk, her eyes sharp yet distant. "Room 7, she said, handing over a rusty key without further explanation. "Thanks," Sarah replied, feeling a twinge of unease. The woman's gaze lingered a moment too long before she turned back to her paperwork. As Sarah walked down the narrow corridor, she noticed that the walls were adorned with peeling wallpaper, and the floor creaked beneath her feet. Room 7 was at the end of the hall, and she hesitated outside the door, the unsettling feeling creeping back. Finally, she unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was small and sparsely furnished, with a single bed and a worn armchair in the corner. The air felt heavy, as if it held the weight of countless untold stories. She dropped her bag and turned on the lamp, revealing faded photographs hanging on the wall, images of past guests, smiling and carefree. But something felt off about them. Their eyes seemed to follow her, an unsettling gaze that made her skin crawl. After a quick shower, Sarah settled onto the bed, trying to shake the growing sense of dread. She picked up her phone, hoping to distract herself, but there was no signal. Just then, a soft tapping echoed from the wall behind her. At first, she brushed it off as the building settling. But then it came again, faint, rhythmic, almost like a knock. Heart racing, she approached the wall, pressing her ear against it. Silence enveloped her, and she felt ridiculous. "Get a grip," she muttered to herself, returning to the bed. But as she lay down, the tapping resumed, louder this time. It seemed to come from the adjoining room. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling. There was no response, just a stillness that felt oppressive. Just as she was about to dismiss it, she heard a soft voice, barely a whisper. "Help me." Her heart dropped. "Is someone there?" she asked, feeling a chill sweep through the room. The voice repeated, more urgent now. "Help me, please." Fueled by fear and curiosity, Sarah opened the door to the hallway. The corridor was empty, the air thick with silence. She walked cautiously to the door of room 8, the source of the voice, and knocked. "Hello, are you okay?" No answer. Just the silence of the old building pressing in around her. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Taking a deep breath, she turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing an eerily similar room, dim, dusty, and empty. But on the wall, a new photograph hung. The image of a woman with hollow eyes and a desperate expression. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her, and the temperature dropped. Sarah spun around, panic rising. The voice echoed again, now a frantic plea. "Help me, get out!" The lights flickered, and the air became electric. Sarah rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. She felt a presence closing in around her, suffocating. The whispers turned to screams, filling her mind. "Get out! You're next!" With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah slammed her shoulder against the door, and it finally burst open. She stumbled into the hallway, running for her room, but the corridor twisted, leading her back to room 8. The walls seemed to close in, trapping her in a nightmare. Frantically, she turned to find the old woman from the lobby standing at the end of the hall, eyes dark and knowing. "You shouldn't have come here," she said softly. Sarah screamed, backing away, but the shadows enveloped her, pulling her back toward the cursed room. She could see the faces of previous guests in the wallpaper, their mouths open in silent screams, their eyes pleading for release. Just as she felt herself being consumed by darkness, she remembered the key in her pocket. With trembling hands, she fumbled for it and thrust it into the lock of her room. The door swung open, and she leaped inside, slamming it shut behind her. Heart racing, she leaned against the door, panting. For a moment, silence fell, but she knew it wouldn't last. Suddenly, the tapping resumed, louder and more insistent. She turned to see the photographs on the wall shifting, the faces twisting into grimaces. The voice returned, now a chorus of cries, each one more desperate than the last. "Help us! You can't stay!" Sarah's breath hitched as she realized the truth. The motel was a trap, a place where lost souls lingered, waiting for the next guest to join them. As she backed away, the walls seemed to ripple, the room closing in around her. She stumbled toward the window, but it wouldn't open. In that moment, the door flew open, revealing the dark hallway beyond. The old woman stood there, her expression unreadable. "Welcome to your forever," she said, and the darkness engulfed Sarah, pulling her into the void. The next morning, the motel stood quiet, the neon sign flickering as usual. Room 7 remained vacant, waiting for the next traveler, the whispers of its last guest echoing softly in the walls.